Hi everyone, thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment for me below. Hi everyone, this is Ian from Planning for Profit, the channel created to help you use the planning system to find profit with your properties. And today's video we'll be looking at houses versus flats, the pros and cons of both. I've worked now in the planning industry for about 10 years. And in that time, I've seen national housing developers, property entrepreneurs, first-time buyers make a lot of money with both of these investments, but I've also seen them make a lot of mistakes with both. So this video is kind of a breakdown of that experience, so that next time you do come to make a property investment, you're a bit more informed. So without further ado, let's start looking at flats. So before we get into the pros and cons of flats, it's important to note that there are kind of two types of flats that you could really benefit from. So there's a flat whereby a single family house has been subdivided into say 2-3 flats. So for instance, a Victorian terrace that has a ground floor flat and an upper floor flat, quite common. The other one is within a block of flats. So, typically, like you saw in this video, like a 5-story block of flats, and then you have a unit within that. They're quite different things in terms of planning, in terms of their scope to kind of change. So starting with the blocks of flats, so the pro is that they're very stable from a planning sense. So once you have consent for that unit, that's it. You have a 2-bed unit, you know exactly where it is. You can look at the floor plans from the permission, and you understand why everything was laid out as it is, and it's a secure investment in that from a planning point of view. When it comes to houses that have been subdivided into flats, the scope for extension is much higher. So with a block of flats, let's say you have a single aspect flat facing south or whatever, if you're on the second floor of a 5-story block, you can't really extend out beyond that elevation. Even if you wanted to, the local planning authority are very unlikely to grant it, let alone the freeholder and let alone the architect that designed it in the first place. So but with houses, if you have a ground floor flat, there's no reason why you can't extend that property. The amount to which you can extend it comes down to the planning policies which you'll need to look at, but the scope for doing that is possible. That's the same with an upper story flat. The slight issue with an upper story flat is that if, say, the ground floor flat has an extension with a roof light, it's very unlikely that you're going to have the opportunity to build on top of that to extend your flat, because that design was based on the premise of that roof light being there. So you would lose people's sunlight and daylight, and when you get into planning arguments like that, it's very hard to overcome. So whilst there is scope to extend flats, there are those things to consider. If you have a ground floor flat, there's much more opportunity to extend it. So you could change it from a 2-bed to a 3-bed, for instance, if you're ground floor. Quite possible if you're upper ground floor, but like I've just said, there's kind of different situations where that could or could not be possible. So you'll need to look at the designs to figure out whether or not that can be done. And that's really it with flats. Huge thing that I nearly forgot was that PD rights. So everyone kind of gets excited about PD rights. They are permitted development rights, which it allows the opportunity for things to be built without planning permission, and that's extensions, alterations, that kind of thing. That is not possible with flats. Once you become a flat, that permitted development right is taken away. It's kind of a gap in the system. So if you had 2 properties, terraced houses, one was a house with a single family living in it, and one was divided into 2 flats. The one with 2 flats does not have the opportunity to extend under PD. You can apply to the planning permission, but you go through that whole process. The PD rights are taken away with the flat, whereas your neighbour might be able to take advantage of all the permitted development rights afforded to it, and it's just the way it goes. So before buying a flat of any nature, just consider those things. So no PD rights, it's quite hard to extend. They are, however, much more secure in terms of you know what you're getting, and those are the main ones. So just be aware of that the next time you purchase your next flat. So let's look at the pros and cons of houses now. Starting with the big one with houses. Houses, like I just mentioned, benefit from permitted development rights. And that's a huge reason why a lot of people go for houses. Again, as I explained before, permitted development rights are those things that you can build without the need for planning permission. And in the description to this video, I'll link to a resource where you can see what you can benefit from with PD. And that really does change the opportunities of a house. If you're looking at a house on a street, and you've done your investigations and there's all the opportunity to extend it, you could be adding huge amounts of value with permitted development rights. You know, in some instances you can add up to 6 meters of an extension, 3 meters in others. There's also the chance for, you know, upper story and roof alterations that can really change an investment completely. So yeah, and once you have the PD rights within a house, you can obviously, I would max it out as much as you can, as much as the kind of restrictions allow you to, and then from there you really have an investment that you can play with, because once you have your permitted development rights, there's nothing stopping you from then applying to subdivide that house into flats. So let's say you have a house that is 3-story terrace house or whatever, and you've identified that you can extend that property by, I don't know, 150 square meters just by permitted development rights alone. You could then divide that property into flats, benefiting from all the permitted development rights that you've had before, and then you're having quite sizable units, or even units that you couldn't fit into the house before because it wasn't possible prior to you doing those extensions. So that's why permitted development rights are such a huge benefit of buying a house. They really can improve the prospects of an investment for you. And obviously beyond PD, just like with flats, there's nothing stopping you from applying for anything you want. It just comes down to whether or not it's acceptable to the local authority, to the council. So you might have a permitted development right that only allows you to extend 3 meters, but there's no reason why you can't then apply for something bigger. You just have to demonstrate why that's acceptable from design and amenity point of view. So there's that. The other large thing that you can do, so because you have that house, the scope for you to change that use is a little more possible. So HMOs are a big attraction to people. Some councils, there are policies within certain councils that only allow a certain number of HMOs within a certain area, to ensure that the whole kind of housing stock isn't turned into HMOs, so that there's a kind of diversity in the type of accommodation available. So if you do your investigations and you find that an HMO is possible, then that's you can apply to do that, and you might get success. So with houses, there's huge scope for doing loads with houses. The downside to having a house is obviously you're responsible for the whole property. If anything goes wrong with it, unlike a flat where the exterior is handled, or major plumbing issues within the building, it's down to you. So with adaptability like that comes certain amounts of risk. So from a planning point of view, houses are hugely adaptable. Like I said, you benefit from PD rights. your scope for extension is higher, an alteration is higher, and there's also the opportunity to change the use if you think that you can do that. So there's a lot of benefits from a house. Whether it's your decision to do houses or flats, it's up to you. But hopefully now you have the kind of tools to give you a much more informed decision.